Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise? Join me in the pledge and then remain standing for our prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor?
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that you have given us, yet another day. And Lord, I pray on behalf of these councilmen and of the mayor, Lord, I pray that your Spirit will give them wisdom tonight in the decisions that they're to make. We pray for our nation and for our President and First Lady, Lord. And Father, how we pray that your Son, Jesus Christ, may be glorified in all things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Call to order our Guthrie Public Works Authority meeting of October 6th. The second item on the agenda is public comments, announcements, recognitions. Do we have any? Got this on the for that item. The third item is a consent agenda. Only one item on the consent agenda. A, which is the approval of the minutes of Special Public Works Authority meeting of September 8th.
So moved.
Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous approval to approve the consent agenda. With that, I adjourn our Guthrie Public Works Authority meeting. Call to order our City Council meeting of October 6th. Second item on the agenda is consent agenda item A, which is the approval of the minutes of the special City Council meeting of September 8th.
So moved.
Entertain a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous approval of the consent agenda item A. Item number 3, we are now in public hearing. Public hearing on the FY 2019 Community Development Block Grant number 17518, water line replacement. This is a report. Leroy?
As you indicated, we had published a notice, and that's the affidavit of the notice of the public hearing on our CDBG water line and valve replacement project. Just a refresher on the project, August 13th, 2019, we got notification from the Department of Commerce that they had awarded us $224,999 grant for this project. It was various water lines and valve replacements, several places around town. I'll have a list of some of the bigger ones in a minute. The low bidder on the project was Patriot, and their bid was, in the dark, it's hard to read it.
529.
Yeah, 529. They were low bidder, and City Council awarded the bid to them. And just to run down, the grant originally was for $224,000, and we pledged a match of $375,000. So it's a $600,000 project. And this is a water main replacement along US 77 over Bird Creek, water main replacement along College from 14th Street to 11th, water main replacement 16th Street from Logan Avenue to College Avenue, water main replacement along Noble from 16th Street to 12th Street, and then water main replacement along Cleveland from 16th to 11th, and then various valve installations at locations throughout town, and then engineering fees, construction, staking, inspection, and then administration fees of $24,000 adds up to $600. When we got the bid with The bid being a little more than that, we had to put some additional local dollars in, so our local match ended up being $394,000 to do the full project. So that made our project $619,000. And what normally would happen, we'd close out the project tonight, but this project, this particular contract has been a little more challenging than some contractors we work with, and we've had to go back and address some, not necessarily the piping work, but the finish work on the yards and some stuff. So at a future meeting, we will be bringing you a change order number 2 to change some quantities and amounts on the contract for your consideration. We'll also be bringing pay request number 4, which will be the final to approve for Patriot. And then at that time, we'll be able to adopt I don't have the number yet, but we'll adopt a resolution approving and accepting the water line and valve replacement project as complete and authorizing the mayor to sign the closeout documents. So tonight, we will have the hearing, but we won't be adopting these final documents. Hopefully, we'll have these ready for the next council meeting. I know that Tenny and Bill Myers and the engineering, or the contractor have been meeting to finish up the change order and agree to everything. With that, Millie Vance is here, our grant administrator. Would you like to say anything?
Thank you, I appreciate that. Basically, the project did serve the entire city, the entire system, in that it, looped some of the system. One of the things that the city had to do to meet the requirements to get this grant was that it served at least 51% low-mod income citizens. By census data, the city of Guthrie at the time of this application was 52.89%. So at this point, this public hearing moves us in the direction of closeout, and as Mr. Alsop said, in the near future, we'll be putting the final documents before you for approval. Since we're in public hearing, any questions from the board or the public, we'd be glad to answer.
None? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Vance.
Thank you.
Millie is working, as soon as we close this project, we'll start working on our next application to do additional water line replacements, as we talked about at our retreat.
Okay.
That's the only thing we need to do on this item today.
Okay, this is a public hearing. If there is any questions by any of the public that is here in the room, either for Millie or Leroy. Okay, hearing none, I close our public hearing and move on to item number 4, discussion possible action to approve EMS agreement between the city and the North and East Logan County EMS District Board. Chief, are you taking that?
Yep.
Which chief? Okay. It's all yours.
All right. This is the culmination of probably 8 years of work to get property tax funded EMS district for the rest of the response districts that our ambulance service has covered since the 1970s. It was petitioned resolution by the Board of Commissioners, put it out to a vote of the people about a year and a half ago, passed pretty handily, and they are finally now on the tax rolls and will be collecting property tax for that area this year. Their board finally got organized and got their feet off the ground, got their trust indenture formed, and has subsequently made contract offers to our agency and Miller EMS to cover 2 different areas of their EMS district. So what you have in front of you on the agenda is an offer for the area that we are going to propose to cover, which is almost identical to the area we've been covering for the last 40 years. We picked up maybe 10 or 12 additional square miles west of the town of Orlando that fall within their school district, which there may be a total of 5 or 6 houses in that whole area. It's pretty remote farmland up there. But the offer they made was $115,421.12 for this fiscal year. Keep in mind, they're going off estimates. They don't have any financial history yet to base their numbers on. They're going purely off the county assessor's estimates on what they will bring in. They also have to get some of their security bonds and stuff set up for their board of trustees, so they have held back a little bit more in their budget this year to pay for those because they still don't know what those costs are going to be. So next year, when everything comes around, this offer should be a little higher. Councilman Channel and I visited a little bit about it today, just to ensure that we're getting compensated for the area that we cover and not getting shortchanged at all. They don't have a lot of money to go around because this is predominantly farmland and small communities, so there's not a lot of property value there to collect from. But it's a lot better than what we've been getting for the last several decades, which is zero. And I'll entertain any questions you guys have.
Sounds like a win.
So the compensation is based on how long? The $115,000 is based on
It's
how
for this
long of
fiscal year.
Okay, for the entire
Yeah,
year.
they'll start getting their property tax revenue, this winter when the property tax statements go out later this year. And, but they're purely basing their revenues off estimates. They
Of
don't
estimate
have
of what the property's
They have
gonna
no
value.
history yet because they haven't collected it all.
So is that why we think we'll get more in the future because the
That-
property value
that
goes
and
up?
they've got some initial startup costs that they're gonna have to incur that they don't have final figures on. Once those are paid, they won't have to worry about those next year. It won't be significantly more, but.
Right,
it will
right.
be
I was
a
just
little bit
curious.
So there's another ambulance service that is taking a part of
Correct.
the district?
The name of this district is kind of confusing. It's north and east, and it's basically all areas of the Covington Douglas School District, which encompasses the Marshall area in far northwest Logan County. That is the area we are not covering. We're geographically too far to efficiently respond up there. Miller EMS, which is a private third-party service, which currently covers Crescent, Cashin, and Garber, and Covington, which is north of Marshall. They're going to cover that section because they have units north and south of there, so it makes sense for them to cover it. They're giving them $10,000 for their area, so we're getting the lion's share of what they bring in. And we'll be covering all of the Mulhall Orlando School District, the Coyle School District, which includes the town of Langston, the small sections of the Wellston, Perkins Tryon, Luther, and I think that's all the school districts. There's little slivers in southeast Logan County of each of those districts.
Okay. And I see that the distribution was made based upon geography?
Yeah, they basically took the collected amounts for the school districts that we're covering and what they will bring in for each of those school districts geographically, and that's how they kind of base the numbers on what we would get versus what the other contractor would get.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I do have a spreadsheet from their board of trustees that kind of spells out how they came up with the numbers. If you guys are interested, I can give you a copy or email it to you.
Okay. Did they discuss it all base it upon population versus land? Is that the two?
With it being a
approximate
property
way?
tax, they felt, like most of them do, they felt that that was the proper way to do it.
Yeah, that makes
based on
sense.
the area that the tax is collected from.
Okay. All right. We have a motion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. We have 4. All opposed, raise your right hand. 4 for it, in favor, and, 5 in favor, and 2 opposed. So the proposed agreement is approved.
Thank you.
Between the North and East Logan County and the City of Guthrie. Item number 5, discussion and possible action to approve ordinance number 3341, amending our Code of Ordinance and updating Article number 7, prevention of youth access to tobacco.
City attorney's going to cover that.
All right, City Attorney, great.
So back in May of this year, the legislature raised the age to purchase, possess, and use tobacco from 18 to 21. Our ordinance, which very well deals with that, still had 18 on it, so what this does is this makes our ordinance conform with the state statute. Basically, everywhere that had 18, and our ordinance now is adjusted to 21.
Okay. Questions by the council? All right, I'll entertain a motion then to update our Article 7 of our ordinance 3341.
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, any other discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? 5-2 to approve the ordinance number 3341. Item number 6.
There's an emergency clause on that ordinance for your consideration.
What's the emergency?
I don't,
I don't see it.
Because the state statutes already went into effect and we're behind, and so.
I don't see that on the agenda.
No, either.
It's on the ordinance.
Oh, it's on the ordinance
On the
itself?
ordinance. It's part of the ordinance.
Okay. Okay, well, as a separate vote then, I'll entertain a motion to approve emergency
So
clause.
moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the emergency clause, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. 5-2 passes the emergency clause of that ordinance 3341. Item number 6, discussion possible action to approve change order number 1 to the Warner Street sewer project. Kenny?
Change order 1 will adjust the final quantities to match field conditions. We've had to add some line items, type A aggregate base for stabilization in this project. What we ran into was during construction, installing the storm sewer lines, we've identified some water lines that was in alignment with the lay of the storm sewer. There was no exact data readily available to tell us exactly where some of these water lines were. Some of them we didn't even know about. So we've had to go in and do some adjustments to the project. City crews went in and relocated the water lines, done some cuts and caps, making it available for the contractor to finish the project. And by doing that, it enlarged the asphalt portion of the project, creating this change order. The 12 days is in this change order was additional days that was required by the city crews to come in and make the changes to the water lines. Just as a keynote, this project, as a reminder, this project is a FEMA project, so 75% of this is reimbursable through FEMA, 12.5% of it is reimbursable from ODOT, and then we're left with 12.5%. That portion of the change order would be $2,315.21. Total change order was $18,521.69.
Motion to approve?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion or questions of Tenny? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous approval then to move forward with change order number 1. Thank you, Tenny. Item number 7, discussion of possible action to approve offer to purchase permanent right-of-way parcel number 1 from HL Rental Properties. Tenny, are you covering that?
So pretty much the same procedure as what was discussed and explained to you on the wastewater treatment plant. This project is over on Pine, where we're looking at doing the widening and relocation of some utilities. There's a gas line, water line, and a AT&T line in this area that we're going to have to look at relocating again and widening that area there where it's a very narrow bridge that had washed out back in the May rains. Same procedures being used, same company is being used, Pinnacle, to handle this. The first tract of land is the southeast section of the quarter, of Section 4, Township 16 North, 2 West. In your packets, we've provided you the letters and everything, the waivers that will be sent out to them. Again, this is just the very first stage of it. It'll be offers that will be made. Exact same procedures that was explained during the wastewater treatment process will be used here.
Okay. Any questions of Denny?
Pricing guidelines are the same as on the other product too? As far as
No,
how much we're giving them?
What they do, they've went and done a survey in the surrounding area. This area is a little bit different. On the Pine Street, the fair market value for the land is recommended at a 43 cents per square foot. Comparable sales provided range was from anywhere from 23 cents a square foot to 45 cents a square foot, with a means of 36 cents per square foot. I can kind of on partial one, we're looking at 0.2266 acres. I think that one came in, the offer was going to be at $4,250 for partial one. I don't know if you want to try to do them both at the
Yeah.
same time like you did the other one. On the partial two, it was going to be an offer of $6,250.
At the same offer of 43 cents square foot?
Yes,
Okay. So that's higher than the mean of other sales or values in the area,
exactly.
okay? And this is, again, just the offer part.
How wide are these, out of curiosity?
If you get down into the bottom of the packet there, it's about 68 feet off to the side of Pine there that we're looking at grabbing a hold of to adjust the utilities over. And then an additional 27 feet roughly. It kind of gives and takes down through there, 27 foot to 33 feet.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion then for both items number 7 and number 8, the approval to offer for the purchase of parcel number 1 from HL Rental Properties and parcel number 2 from Shirley and A.J. Powell Jr.
So moved.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous approval then to move forward with the offer of the purchase of those two pieces of land. Item number 9, discussion possible action to solicit bids on the Harrison Street project. Leroy.
Again, as you indicated, this is dealing with Harrison Street Bridge. There are some people in our community that think that we just put the cones out and we haven't done anything since to try to address the bridge. So I'd like to go through a little of the history. And it's more than just the bridge that we've tried to look at over time. The stormwater drainage from the temple drains back to Wentz, and then there's a big collector tube about 48 inches that goes under where this bridge used to locate on Wentz, and then of course it goes under the football field and baseball field as well. So when we originally looked at this project, there was a potential of getting funding through the area government to fund the project at 80% of the construction cost. So we looked at not only doing the bridge itself, but doing some street improvements in this area, and also improve the, you see the red lines, those are drainage lines, improve the stormwater drainage to try to address some of the stormwater we have backed up in these areas. And so in 2017, we made application to ACOG, which is ODOT money that is administered through ACOG. At that time, their scoring formula was weighted on readiness points. And that meant that if you had your construction drawings ready to go and ready to go out for bids, you got additional points. If it wasn't for the readiness points, we would have got some funding for this project. So then the next year, which, let's see, I'll go back to the beginning. This is actually an 18 application, but they asked us to divide it up. We went ahead and, because most small cities can't go ahead and fund the complete engineering of a project and then put it on the shelf, hoping that they can get a grant. But you know, the Normans, Oklahoma cities, they can afford to do that. Well, we decided, since if we'd had those readiness points, we would have got funded. City council went ahead and did retain the engineer to do the drawings. Well, the second year, they changed the scoring formula, and the readiness points went away, and it was modified, weighted more on traffic counts. Well, there's not many roads in Guthrie that can compete with traffic counts in Oklahoma City and Norman. So again, we were kind of behind the curve, and I don't think ACOG did it intentionally, but they realized the weighted system didn't work, and they tried to look at something else. Now they realize that this skews it another direction, and I think they're still in discussions of how they might address it in the future so that smaller communities like Guthrie can compete for these fundings, where in the last few years we just haven't been able to compete. And then in October, we brought it to the city council, and we looked at doing it 100% local funding. And at that time, it was decided to make one more run at ACOG to see if we could get funding. So in December of 19, we applied for ACOG again, and again, it's a split. We submitted in two applications, one for Harrison and one for Oklahoma. This time, even though the project was substantially more, the total project on Harrison was over $1 million, we did get $126,273. So they give all the money away. They had 126 left. We were the next score, and they asked us, do you want that 126? Well, of course, we immediately said yes, because we wanted to tie it up so we could do our analysis. We've also looked at, because we could not do the curb extensions on Division through part of the TAP grant, we visited with ODOT, and we had 5 or 6 ODOT people in the meeting, and they seemed to indicate that we could repurpose the Division streetscape money over to the Harrison Street Bridge project and do brick sidewalks on Harrison in lieu of doing Division. So on August 21st, we submitted a formal report to them, or formal request. They come back on August 28th and even though there were 7 or 8 of them, and even the one that wrote the denial letter was in that meeting, they denied it. They determined since that Harrison Street project wasn't scored, the division was that they couldn't move it over there because they would have no way to compare it to see if we would have still scored high enough for that project to get funded. Those numbers, and I can send you all this presentation if you want these specific numbers. The numbers wasn't what I was trying to get across. What I was trying to get across is that if you do the full project, you would have to address drainage because of the additional stormwater flow that is built up over the years coming from the Temple to Harrison, to Winston and going south. There's several streets. But now with the 126, there's basically 4 options to it that we have available. Option 1 is a diminished project. Won't really do any drainage, and let me show you. That's the full project that we submitted to ACOG, which included some drainage work, included some sidewalk work. The scaled down version is simply the bridge itself and then extending out from the bridge so that in the future when we do drainage work we've got something to tie into, and extending this manhole out and past the rock wall. And then this would be option 1, an alternate bid to extend this corner by Powell's building if we wanted to do so when we open bids. So that's the scale down. Really not doing any drainage improvements other than preparing inlets so that when you do drainage in the future, you got something to tie into and you're taking out the old bridge and replacing it. That's the scaled down project. Now, if this project was out in the middle of nowhere, it'd be a lot cheaper because we wouldn't have to worry about the rock wall at the stadium because we have to protect that rock wall. We have to put a retaining wall in because you just can't fill that cavity because it'll push the rock wall out. And so that makes the project more expensive. If this was a bridge that was out and had nothing but cavity around it and wasn't filled in on both sides, then you would just go knock it out and we could fill it in ourselves. But this is a lot more involved project. So back to our options. Our options is if we use 100% local funds, we can do it for $798,000, almost $800,000. We can immediately go out for bids, so that's why we have an estimated completion of June of '21. If we use the $126,000 grant from ODOT, we also have to use ODOT engineering. We have to use the Davis-Bacon Act, Buy America, and some other additional requirements to use those federal funds, which actually makes the cost more. And so when you use their 126, you really don't save any money. But the real kicker is, if you remember the Division Streetscape TAP grant, we've been working on that for 4 years, trying to get the environmental process. When you go through Section 106 environmental review process, because this is a historic district, it takes at least 12 months to go through that historic review. So that's why it would be 2023 before we would get the project funded if we use that $126,000. So not only does it not really save us anything, but it also makes it a longer term project because using federal funds puts those additional requirements on us for the environmental review process that we won't have to go through if we do the local funds only. Local funds only, we will have to take the project, of course, to our own Historic Preservation Commission locally, but it doesn't have to go to SHPO and Park Service, archaeological, some of those kinds of things. Full project that we talked about, again, if we did it ourselves, it would be around 1.3 million. And then if we used that 126, we would have about 1.28 million. The environmental process and what you go through, if you're getting 80% of it funded, that's one thing. But when you're just getting a small piece of it funded, it's almost not worth pursuing the federal funds for a small piece of the project. With that, Bill Mars is here, Tenny's here. We'd be glad to answer any questions we can as you discuss this to try to make a decision.
Well, what's your recommendation, Leroy? I mean, we've been round and round and round about this
Option
thing.
one, just do it ourselves and get it
Be
done.
done with it?
Yes, sir.
Kind of what I'm thinking.
It's time to get it done.
And
It's
funding
been a
that.
little bit of time in the process.
And
It
fund-
has.
As you've identified, it was for a good purpose, when we thought we would have at least a split of the cost.
If we were able to get full funding from ACOG, then we would have been able to make substantial stormwater drainage improvements as well as some street and sidewalk improvements for virtually what it would cost us just to do the bridge. So it was worth the time and trouble if we could do that. But now that they're giving us just a small amount, it adds to the length of the project. It's really not going to save us anything. We've exhausted all our efforts to get grant money to go towards this project, and now I think it's time for us to just use our local funds and get the project over and move on to other projects.
Okay, any other questions of Leroy?
And plus, if we did that, we got your guarantee that it'd be done by June.
I'll be down there with the shovel, and I'll meet you there if it's not.
Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion then to move up to option number one and move the city to move ahead with
Well,
that.
so on the funding part of it, can we talk about that just a little bit more?
We had roughly $600,000 already set aside for this project. So now we will have to look at our CIP funds and adjust those to come up with the difference.
So we need a couple $100,000. basically.
Correct.
Okay. Entertain a motion, to move
Motion
with
to
option number
approve.
one.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, right hand. Unanimous approval then to move forward with option number one.
Is it any cheaper if we fill that hole with lawyers? Just asking.
Item number 10, discussion and possible action to adopt and approve ordinance number 3340, amending our Code of Ordinance, Chapter 4 concerning buildings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you, Mr.
Dan.
Mayor. I am actually going to be fairly short with this because I think we should all be fairly familiar with this ordinance and that. I just have a couple things to go over. Just to give a little history, this is the ordinance that has the commercial, the residential design standards, would create the Guthrie overlay district, as well as a couple amendments to our accessory structures as well as fences. Started out in March at the Planning Commission, went to a few council meetings, went back to the Planning Commission, went to another council meeting, and we're here tonight. The big difference between this version and the last version that was at the council in August is the commercial standards. They kind of got split up into two, I guess, areas, if you want to say. There's this citywide, and then there's a corridor. And the requirements in each of those are different when it comes to the exterior materials. In the overall city, outside the corridor, it would be basically what we have now. You could have up to 60% metal. You could obviously have stone, cast stone, sandstone, brick in that, but the wood, the ephes, the stucco, the metal could be up to 60%. Within the corridor, which would be from the historic district east along Noble to I-35, and then from the historic district south on Division to I-35, the exterior building requirements or that would be a little bit more enhanced. And in those cases, if you're, and the criteria is any property that has frontage along those right-of-ways within that corridor. They would be required to have 60% red brick on the front, and the other 40% could be of any of the other materials, stone, cast stone, tinted, textured concrete masonry units, or an equivalent long-lasting masonry unit, but no metal. The side and rear elevations would also have to be, the primary exterior would have to be stone, cast stone, sandstone. In those cases, in the other three sides, 20% could be up to a stucco, ephes, or those type of materials. And then finally, a limitation to 10% metal for the overall building design. And so that was the big differences between, again, the last version that came to council and this current version. So what that means is, you know, again, let's say if you're way north of town, even out by, you know, our convenience center or dump somewhere, you could have a building that's 60% metal. But if you're down the street here on Division, you're going to have 60% red brick on the front with the other corresponding exterior materials on the other three sides in that. So that, like I said, was really the big difference. The accessory structure is exactly the same. It still has the corridors that distinguish metal from no metal, and all of that information is still there. As the council may remember, the one change that was done at the last meeting was to allow a no limitation on sizes for 1.5 acres. That verbiage is in this, but that isn't changing from the ordinance that was adopted. There was also a little caveat that was put on that if you're in an area, it still would have to be basically in character with the neighborhood. So if you're around an area where there's roughly maybe at most 1,000 square foot accessory structures, even if you're on 1.5 acres, you're not going to put 3,000 square foot building there. And if they wanted to go down that road, then they can do it through a special use permit. And also, one of the things with kind of changing these different versions, I inadvertently left out a couple provisions in the accessory structures part. It would be adding provisions 1 and 2, and what those were pertaining to was saying no commercial activities can be an accessory structure. It cannot be used for living purposes. You can have the half bath. That I inadvertently left that out. So in the most recent version I have here, and that I asked that you guys would have added to that, would put those two provisions back in that was part of the original ordinance. So with that, I will conclude my part and put it back to the council if you have any questions.
All right. So hang around just a minute. Mr. Morris?
Yes.
I'd go ahead and interject. You asked to speak on this, so before there's questions, if Dan wanted to give you your time.
Cool.
Identify yourself and your address, please.
Elijah Morris, 508 North Broad Street here in Guthrie, and I just want to encourage the council to pass this ordinance. I'm a local builder here in Guthrie, and there's some things in here that I've been working with Dan pretty much all summer to try to get on the residential design standards. I have a couple projects that I'm doing that really play into these new standards that we have. So I just want to encourage you guys to pass this. I know Dan's been working on it for a long time. So yeah, that's my
Okay, all right.
thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Appreciate those comments. Dan, you're back up. Okay, so open it up to questions from the council.
So this is like the fourth time we're visiting this thing.
Yeah, we're on exactly.
At this point.
It's been,
So we don't want to beat the dead horse.
Yeah.
Okay, but we did spend 3 days, some 8-10 hours in council side meetings on this, and this council doesn't see what the outcome of that was. Okay, for example, on this overlay, okay, we took the overlay, originally we were going to do 200 to 300 feet from the center line And then we decided, going down Division, and then we decided we're going to cut it in industrial, okay, and make that the entryway where the regulations were going to take effect, covering the entire historic district, okay, and all of those historic residential neighborhoods there, and then down Noble. The issue was the egg. There was an egg issue at that point. And I get that, okay? They didn't want buildings, metal buildings in their neighborhood, and I understand, okay? Trust me, I get it. So the give on that should have been putting that overlay back over the egg. But instead what happened is you went back to the exact original deal that this council already cut down in 3 days worth of meetings and in the last full council meeting. And it's still here, okay? And I'm not going to hammer on it, but it's still here.
No, and I can
okay? There's no explanation.
Okay.
I mean, it should be cut at industrial. That's what we did. That's what, as a council, that we did. All of the changes that we made are not identified anywhere in this whatsoever. And so with that, I'm going to make a motion to table it until this whole council has the actual complete dossier, so to speak, of what we did in our council meetings, okay, so that they can see what this council did versus where it's at today, and put them side by side, because that's not the way this is.
Response?
The one overlay that Councilman Guthrie was talking about pertained to the accessory structures. Only the accessory structures. It had no other pertinence in the current code. It has no pertinence in this code in that. And it's the areas that distinguish what can have metal and where they cannot have metal for accessory structures. And you're correct, when it went to the subcommittee, they decided to take all of that out.
Well, no, exactly what we decided to do is go 300 feet.
No, there's two different issues there.
All right, okay.
Yeah, there's two different issues, and I'll go over both of them. The accessory structures was taken out in its entirety, so basically it allowed metal all over town. That went to the council, but it didn't have a decision. They felt that there is enough changes to go back to the planning commission. So it went back to the planning commission. They decided to reinsert the accessory structures overlays that again would have the areas distinguished for what could have the metal and what areas didn't have to, what areas could not have metal and what areas could have metal in that. And they made a few other changes in that. But that was the part that was for the accessory structures, and that was back in at the Planning Commission. Now, the other part is the commercial corridor, and that, again, that's where we were talking, and you're right, in the subcommittee, there was talk that it would be from industrial north to the historic district, and then from the historic district east to Noble. And in that area, it would have the enhanced, or would have a red brick, 100% red brick on the front. Face, right. And again, when that went back to the council, or the commission felt that that may not allow for a good architectural design or deviation to have 100% red brick, because even the structures downtown have some masonry type pop outs and again a variation of materials to become the buildings that they are. So their recommendation was to say 60% red brick and the other 40% be of the any other materials to again allow for some creativity, if you want to say, in the styling in that. So that's where that changed. The other aspect that changed was the increasing the area that the corridor would be. That it would go from interstate I-30 or I-35 on Division all the way up to the historic district, and then again remain from the east part of the, or easterly from the historic district to I-35. So that did change. The committee had recommended, the subcommittee had recommended simply industrial north to leave everything else south on Division alone in terms of that corridor. So that's where that changed. Now obviously if...
But let me jump in. That was both on the commercial and the accessory
No,
structures.
right, yeah.
Okay, well, and on top of that, when I watched the 3-hour planning meeting that you guys had, and when you brought that back to them, you blatantly left the overlay in, okay, period. You can go watch the meeting, okay, it was there. You said, no, I left this in because I just
Yes, for
did."
a pointed discussion.
Okay, no, it wasn't even a pointed discussion, you just left it in. And Joe Chappell said, well, that solves my problem then. That's right, that's what I thought. Okay, and that's how that got left in. Okay, this wasn't planning saying, no, we need the overlay all the way in.
So right now, what's before us is the overlay that goes out to 35.
For the commercial corridor, yes. Yes.
So.
Not just for the commercial
Just a
corridor.
minute. On what was presented to us on Exhibit B, it says residential accessory building overlay.
Right, again, that only pertains to the accessory accessory structures. It
Okay,
has
is
no-
there another exhibit then that?
No, because it's all based on frontage. The corridor is that area, and it's described in the ordinance for that section that says Division Street and Noble Avenue corridor, and it states in there that any property that has frontage along either of those corridors
Okay.
would. So if there's a property that's, not frontage and is back of
That's
division or
that's the-
normal, then they don't have to meet that criteria.
That's the 300 feet from center
No, it
line?
would be
No,
based on
1,000.
frontage. Yeah.
1,000 feet.
No, two different things again.
No.
The commercial corridor is based on properties that have frontage on either division or noble. If you do not have frontage, it does not apply.
Doesn't matter how far back it
How
goes.
far off it is. The accessory structures overlay, where again, the only thing it's used for is this area can have metal, this area cannot have metal, was based on 1,000 feet on each side of Division and Noble, and then that area that's up in Midtown. But that's where the 1,000 feet came in, and that's how that corridor or that area was distinguished. But for the commercial, it would be frontage only. There's no, so again, if you're, if you do not have frontage on there, you do not have to comply with it. You comply with the citywide where you can have up to 60% metal.
Again, we as a council subcommittee cut it off at industrial.
That is correct.
It was Cheryl, James, and me, and you.
Yes, that's
Okay?
correct.
Because when you look at 1,000 feet from Division, you're hitting the airport. Okay? You can go measure it. You are actually hitting airport structures. Okay? That's how far we're talking about 1,000 feet is.
But that's not what he's talking. He's
But
talking,
that's just for
he's
accessory
talking
buildings.
frontage.
Right.
No, he's not talking frontage. He's talking 1,000 feet from the center line on accessory.
Are you talking
buildings.
frontage or not?
On commercial, he's talking frontage, but on residential, he's not.
He's correct. On the residential, it would
I've been
still be
through
the
the-
Well, the
1,000 foot.
airport is not residential.
I understand that, but their metal buildings get taken over by this 1,000-foot rule.
But
Just
again,
saying
it's,
that's how far
okay.
away 1,000 feet is.
it's for
That's how far
accessory
1,000
structures
feet
only.
is what I'm trying to convey to you guys. Okay? 1,000 feet is 3 city blocks plus.
Okay,
That's what it is.
all right.
Okay? It's a long way. Okay, and so, again, what I'd like to show this council, which is what I wanted to show this council prior to it going back to planning, when Joe and I had a discussion over here, was exactly what we approved and took out of this thing and added to this thing, which you guys aren't seeing.
That's what you wanted to see.
That's what I wanted to
Planning-
show back at the beginning.
That's what planning should have seen.
And that's
so
what
they can
planning
make
should have
their
seen, and
decision
they
based on
didn't.
that. Okay.
What
I
they,
get-
what
I
they
get you.
saw was a complete, exact overlay as to what it was.
Okay, second. Leroy?
So we need to be clear, one of the rules that deals with frontage of Division and Noble, it only applies to property that have frontage on those two roads. It's not, if you got two properties that one of them's 300 foot deep and one of them's 700 feet back to back, the second property doesn't apply to because they don't have frontage. That's on commercial.
Right.
The other one deals with accessory buildings for residential property. We need to make sure when we talk about those that we keep those separate, because we keep trying to talk about them like they're the same overlay district. The second thing is, I would point out that the August 4th, 2020 meeting, the ordinance had the provisions that Mr. Guthrie was talking about, and that ordinance was tabled. So that ordinance has been before the city council with the provisions that you were
Well,
talking about.
that ordinance was tabled so it could go back to planning. James made the motion.
Yes.
Okay, it was not heard in this council. It went back to planning.
Sure.
And what went back to planning was basically the original ordinance.
Which is not what they drew up in the
I watched the 3-hour meeting.
Finance Committee.
Well,
Well, the
The-
current
the-
ordinance in front of you is far from the original.
Well,
It
I
has
understand it's
all
far
of
from the original, but it's
It
far
has
from
most
what
all,
we.
it has, outside of the, basically the accessory structures corridor, or if you want to say overlay areas, all of the provisions that were from the subcommittee are in there. The only difference is like I said, the subcommittee said we want to get rid of the overlay for the accessory structures in its entirety. And so then that got put back in. But outside of that, all the other things that were discussed, now granted, the corridor area for Noble and that was extended some than what was originally, because as you said, and I indicated, it was cut off at industrial in that. Now it goes further. If there's desire to keep it at industrial, that's fine. I mean, you know,
Well, that
that's
was
up to the
what,
council.
that's what the council
But
decided
all
in the
the
special
other,
meeting.
right, but all the other
That's what the
elements.
The subcommittee did.
Right, but all
you
the
weren't
other
here.
elements of the subcommittee were in there, including what was discussed on the residential side, the Guthrie proper overlay, because that's where we also reduced the size of the Guthrie proper overlay, took the southern part out of there, made some small setback things and other stuff like that.
So, but again, when it went back to the 3-hour planning meeting, which James tabled, it went back just as it was original. Because I watched it. You can go watch it. It's there. That's what it went back as. And I try to keep it separate, Leroy, but you got this overlay that doesn't allow you to separate it. Okay? Yeah, you can separate the frontage on commercial. I get the commercial.
Okay.
Okay? But in the residential side of it, if you want to put a Morgan building, you can't. Okay?
Not in that overlay
And
district.
not in
you're
the
correct.
overlay. So how do you
Right.
separate it?
Well, one's commercial, one's residential.
Right.
It's pretty simple.
No, they're not. They're all zone C2 or C1 in
No.
there. The whole damn place is.
But again, the distinction,
Okay.
the distinction is in the ordinance as well as even the zoning code, is even if you're in a C2 area, per the zoning code, if it's being utilized for residential purposes, all residential regulations apply. You can't have commercial activities, period.
Right. So the overlay for commercial sucks in the C2 residential. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, it takes it in. And so there's a lot of land out there that could be developed into 1, 2, 5 acre tracts, okay, that are no longer going to be able to have the luxury of the Morgan type buildings and that type of accessory building, period.
If it's a
they have
commercial
frontage?
building, it's a whole different story.
No, if they don't have frontage, Steve.
But if you're talking about an accessory building on property either zoned residential or used as residential, then if it's in that corridor,
It's not
you can't
allowed.
have a
You're
metal
correct.
building.
That's
That's
right.
correct.
Or skin.
Right.
What was proposed back on August 4th, if I remember correctly, they did away with the overlay district, and you could have metal accessory buildings anywhere in town except the historic district.
Anywhere outside of the overlay district, which was shortened to industrial?
No.
To Noble.
No, that overlay district that you're talking about, the industrial, has nothing to
Right.
do with residential accessory buildings. That only has to do with commercial.
Well, when we stopped it at industrial,
No,
that's
that
what it
was
had
the
to do
commercial.
with.
That was the commercial.
Commercial.
No, it was this overlay, period, the whole overlay.
No.
I think that overlay disappeared.
No, because, well, you can disagree. We were in the meetings. I asked you to come in the meeting. You said, too many cooks in the kitchen. Okay, but the bottom line is that's what it was. You guys were in there. Okay, and we cut it at industrial. Outside of industrial, residentially, you do what you want. Outside of industrial, commercially, there was still guidelines you had to follow. Okay, that were in the initial commercial guidelines. That's the way it was.
So is the issue extending it beyond industrial?
Yes.
Okay.
In what aspect? The accessories?
Yes, well, on the commercial side, the frontage, your commercial deal already protects commercial buildings. I mean, it already protects this town on commercial,
For frontage,
for
correct.
frontage.
Right, but
That
that's what
already
I mean,
happens, that's already there.
Right, but, right, the issue is with the extension
Exactly.
of the area for the accessory
Right,
structures.
that's correct.
Right, okay.
Well,
So you're wanting the one portion, which would be the one in red, which is the main corridor, the main corridor division, that overlay to only extend to industrial, and then south of that, it wouldn't exist, and you could have metal anywhere in those areas.
That's right.
Okay.
And
that's, the council can do that, I mean.
But-
yeah.
I think that our entry point to this community is a lot further south than
Oh, the
industrial.
hell, it is not.
It is
not,
Then we
Steve.
already have
It's
a
not.
bunch of, just a minute, just a minute. We already have some unsightly things that are south of industrial as you drive into our community. I drive it every day. You do too.
I do too.
I don't think that we ought to have any, I don't think we put anything in place that allows that continuation. I think we need to have something that says that some of the things that we have there, I'm not going to name names, but we all know what they are not appropriate for
Again,
entry.
that's a
Entry-
that's
just
a
minute,
commercial
just a
deal,
minute.
Steve.
Would you wait a minute?
Yeah, barely.
That is not what we want to see when we enter Guthrie from the south. I totally agree that our entry point is a lot further than industrial. And again, I think we have some unsightly things between industrial and I-35 that,
But I think all he's wanting to change is the residential outbuilding side of this. He's not trying to change the commercial aspect.
Well, and you're
If you're putting in a commercial building along Division out there, you're still gonna have to meet.
well,
the
they're commercial buildings, what I'm talking, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
he's
what I'm.
talking about
I'm
But we
talking
got
about-
them wrapped, you got them
Now
wrapped
we're talking
together
about
here,
two things
Steve, in this overlay. The overlay wraps them both.
No,
There's no separation.
there is.
Where? If you are in this green overlay and you are gonna put a house on 5 acres, you cannot have a metal building.
No, right, but it.
There you go.
But-
That's
but
all
no.
you, that's all you just said.
No, no.
You don't have to say anymore.
But you said
You
the
don't have to
commercial
say
and the-
anymore, Dan.
haven't
You
let
said
him
you're
say
right, because he
anymore.
doesn't need to say anymore, because that's right. That's how you got it. Okay?
Okay, all right.
There is no
Okay,
segregation of it.
just respond.
The ordinance is set up where there's an Exhibit B, which is the overlays that you're talking about. It only pertains to the accessory structures, and its only reference is in the accessory structures to say, if you're in one of the overlay areas or the color-coded areas, you cannot have metal accessory buildings.
That's what I just said.
No, you were saying that the commercial and that were together. The commercial is totally separate.
Okay, the overlay governs the commercial
No, it
and the
doesn't.
residential.
No, that's what I'm saying. is
All right,
the-
let me put it to you this way. It governs the commercial, okay? And it does, the design standard of the commercial on the frontage, okay? And it also governs residential accessory buildings within that overlay, correct? Or wrong? Is that right or wrong?
Well, no, it's
It
not
doesn't?
correct.
So
No,
in
right.
that overlay, in the residential in that overlay, you can have
No.
metal
here,
accessory
hold on.
buildings?
The commercial part is simply frontage on division.
I get that.
No, right, but what I'm saying is that's it. There's no map, because if you have frontage on division, you are part of that corridor and you have to meet those
Correct.
standards. So there's no map needed. It's frontage,
Right.
frontage based.
I understand.
The other one that has the map is the 1,000 feet center line, each side of division. That is strictly for accessory structures. So you're right, in that area there,
That's all I'm saying.
you cannot have metal accessory structures. But again, it has nothing to do with the commercial side. If
I
it's a
understand.
commercial property and you have frontage, you meet those. If you don't, you can have metal.
I understand.
Okay.
And I've been saying the exact same thing the whole conversation.
So why would we keep someone, even though it's division frontage, if they have 5 acres, they build a house? Why would we tell them they cannot build a metal building?
Because that's how it's set up. I mean, it's,
But does that make any sense, is what I'm
And that's what we changed.
I mean, what, if we, because we're letting other people build metal buildings, correct?
Yeah.
And if I have 5 acres, there is a horse property or a cattle property on roller coaster and division. If their barn falls down, they can't build another metal barn?
No, according to this.
no,
He's not asking
no,
you.
right,
You
but
can't.
it,
Can you?
well, on outside of the,
It's on
You and I
Division
have a conversation
and
later.
Road.
yeah, if it's in that area,
If
they,
they're metal barn all found. can they
right,
build a-
no, not if they're in that
That's
corridor.
horseshit.
Hey,
Right, but I'll just, well, and again, it doesn't really make any difference to me
Well,
per
if it
se.
didn't make a difference to you, when you brought it
No.
back to planning, how come you brought it back in its
Because
whole
the planning
entirety?
commission put it back in there.
You put it back in there. Watch the video, Dan. You put it back.
Can we do this? Can we just,
They didn't put it back.
can we?
It's a
No,
community
let me
decision.
just be real
If-
clear.
Let's
That
if I can
planning
real-
commission did not put it back, you did.
If I can go back real quick, it goes back to what the mayor said. It's what basically vision you want your community to have. If you want metal buildings all over town, that's fine. Allow metal buildings all over town. It's not, you know, if that's what is the
That's not
desire-
what we're talking about, and you know it. Okay, it's not. Okay?
If we were,
Really, it's pertaining to what James is talking about, and that's exactly what it's about.
so how do you prevent a situation,
If it's
James,
resi- if
where,
it's resi-
just a minute, where I've got 5 acres of land that's on Division, okay? And I put a metal building up right on, residential.
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 If you've got 5 acres, you intend to do something more than just live in a house on 5 acres. If someone's buying a 5-acre parcel, they're probably gonna wanna have an accessory building to store their boats, their ATVs, whatever else that they may have in. And we are simply telling them, no, you can't have a metal structure. But we're allowing other residential areas to do it, but because you live on Division, you can't have a metal building.
So-
And I think that's wrong.
So what
in the
if-
aspect that there are lots of homes that have very nice metal buildings. Drive through Triple Crown Meadows. There are tons of metal buildings that
Yep.
look just fine and very nice, and those homes go for $300,000, some of them. I mean, there's no reason why it's now residential. My whole goal was not allowing metal buildings was from a commercial standpoint, because that is a huge commercial corridor. But when you've got larger parcels of land that people are living on residentially, that maybe have cattle or have some type of animals on there, and their barn falls down, and we're telling them they can't rebuild a barn. We had that same instance out by the lake, and we finally said, fine, let them build their barn. I mean, they've got enough acres to do so. We're doing the same thing again. We haven't paid attention to what we just tried to fix.
So how would we prevent them putting up their metal structure right adjacent to Division? In that
They own
scenario?
the property and it's residential, they can do so. They would follow the residential code anywhere and everywhere else.
And that's what we want to have seen as we drive
If
in.
you've got 5 acres and you live there, absolutely, I'm sure it's gonna be neat and tidy. I don't see a problem with it. If
These-
you're
the
gonna
frontage
live-
land on
I
Division is
understand
worth
if
a
you're gonna
fortune,
develop a
guys.
Commercial corridor, I don't wanna see a bunch of metal buildings all over the place, no. But if you are a residential, you've got one house and you got one accessory building, it should be able to be metal. There's no reason why it shouldn't be. Don's allowed to have a metal building at his house,
Hey,
Hey, watch out for that.
and he lives in town. That's in town too, but you got 5 acres. If you buy 5 acres, you intend to do more than just have a house.
Where is the?
But this is what we thought we fixed in that
It
deal.
is.
Yeah.
The commercial was still gonna be under the commercial standards. We were just cutting this green overlay that governed
Yes.
accessory buildings in residential and industrial. That's what we did.
Where was the verbiage that if you had up to 5 acres, you could
Better
not?
get closer to the speaker.
That's all.
Oh.
They changed it all.
No, that's
Okay.
in there.
If you had up to 5 acres, you could not have it, but if you had 5 acres or more,
No, it goes below 5 acres.
No, it was, there's a couple things.
I'm just asking
Yeah,
where
by the
that
current
verbiage-
ordinance, if you're in an ag area that's
Oh.
A1 or A2 and you're over 5 acres, you can have all metal, you can in fact have a standalone accessory, you don't even need a primary. Was that the provision you're, yeah.
Right.
And then one of the things that was added in the residential design standards was if you had 5 acres or more, you could have an all-metal home, so like a barndominium. And that's in there, in the proposed one. But the current one, that 5 acres is limited to the ag area.
But they
Okay.
did make it up to 2 acres, I believe, 1 to 2
1.5.
acres, 1.5 acres. where you could
Unlimited
have- That's what
size.
she's talking about, I think, where you can
No.
have the
No.
metal buildings.
No,
Okay.
I was talking about the under 5 and over
Okay,
5.
so now you got an acre and a half, okay, home out at the lake or wherever that can have a metal building, but now you got a 10-acre tract on Division that can't.
Why can't we just eliminate the dadgum overlay?
That's what we did.
Why can't we do it now and vote
We
on
can do it now.
Okay, why don't we do that?
I'm a proponent of that.
I make a motion that we eliminate the overlay.
Well, I'm not
as it
done. I've got
applies
more
to
questions.
accessory
Wait a
buildings.
minute.
Just a minute.
Bob Wilkes got the motion now.
So do you want to rescind your,
I can rescind the motion to table.
Okay?
here's my next question, though. Shipping containers. I know there are people that have shipping containers as storage facilities out by the lake. Why are you telling, I mean, shipping containers have really become the very in thing, and I mean, people are making homes out of them and lots of other things. Why have you completely disallowed them in
It's in
residential
the current
areas?
ordinance. That didn't change from the current ordinance.
Okay, well, we're rewriting it. Why did you not look to take it out?
Because there wasn't any desire to take it out
By whom?
by the planning commission or any of the subcommittee or anything else.
I don't remember the shipping containers in the subcommittee, but
No, we never discussed it.
No one
I've
brought it up.
got a question on the,
So
on the residential, when you're talking about curbs, gutters, and sidewalks, you're saying it's for new construction, it would be required only if adjacent parcels have sidewalks, curbs, and gutters?
Yeah, in developed areas.
Okay.
So for instance, like if you're over here off of, let's say, Noble or something, and there's a sidewalk on each side, even if it's a vacant lot, you're putting a house in, you'll have to put sidewalks in.
Okay,
But if
wh-
you're on another street and there's no
Why
sidewalks,
would it have to be on both sides?
because
Well,
of the,
let's just say that there's 2 vacant lots,
okay,
okay?
yeah.
Or there's 2 lots, not vacant, and neither of them have sidewalks, but on both sides of those 2, there are.
That's, I mean, honestly, it's one of the things that you run into. One of the ideas was, or really the premise behind it was, is to have some connectivity and continuity with the sidewalks. So again, it didn't make sense for somebody to put in a sidewalk in front of their house if for, the next 2 or 3 blocks there, lots there were none. So,
I would
yeah.
tend to agree with that. I guess I would just.
But
I
it's
would
hard
say-
to make that distinction of where, you go, so you don't have, again, kind of the sidewalks in the middle of nowhere.
And I would just say, I would prefer if it said adjacent parcel rather than
Oh,
parcels.
just one side?
Just on
Oh,
either
okay.
side.
That's fine, too. Yeah.
I mean, our intent, obviously, is to try to get curb, gutter, and sidewalks throughout.
No, that makes sense, too.
So my next question, you mentioned that accessory buildings could only have a half bath. So are we saying no living quarters in accessory structures, so no guest houses can be erected and/or no
Correct, but
granny
there's,
pads?
there's a couple things working on that. Per the current ordinance, that's what it says. However, in the updated zoning code, which has now gone through the planning commission, one of the things that was added in there was to allow accessory dwelling units. So there's a whole section in there regarding accessory dwelling units. If that is part of the updated zoning code, this area would also be amended to take that verbiage out, because obviously then it would be allowed. So that's something we are looking at. It's just in the updated zoning code, not this particular ordinance.
Why can't we table
we
it
can,
then?
well,
If there's gonna be an addition and then a correction later.
because that's the zoning portion of it. This is the design standard.
Okay,
I'm just thinking that as far as the accessory buildings go, only accessory buildings go, that we go ahead and eliminate the overlay from industrial going south. Leave it there for commercial and do all the stuff you're doing commercially, but as far as the residential stuff, get rid of it.
Is that in the motion?
Well, yeah, I'd make a motion that we do that.
And I'll second it.
Oh, yeah, from what point? From industrial?
Well, industrial's where y'all stop.
To I-35 and Noble to I-35 and then encompass the whole egg area. I assume that that's the purple.
And that's for the commercial.
No, you mean accessory, yeah.
accessory building.
Yeah. So for the accessory buildings, the area that exists as the corridor from industrial south, eliminate that.
Correct.
Okay. But leave the rest.
So then it's just the Wild West?
For accessory structures, not for commercial. Right.
But
But
not for
yes.
commercial.
It
Well,
would
they
allow
have to
metal
follow,
anywhere.
they have to follow the
They
rules
gotta
for
follow the
accessory
rules that are in
structures.
place for the rest of the town
Well, that's what I'm
on
asking.
accessory structures. Yeah. You can't have a 1 acre piece of land and put up a 7,000 square foot accessory building.
Yeah, size-wise, it would still be limited to what's currently
Like the
there.
whole rest of the town is.
We're just talking exterior materials.
Okay. And then, so what about James' comment about the storage container?
I mean, well, and I think in terms of probably a couple things here to continue some of this on, because I think it is important that we start getting some of this in place in terms of our design standards, the residential side in that. That's another element that with the upcoming zoning code, that's something we can still look at. And I can, do the shipping containers and add, we can discuss that and add provisions and, do it at that point. I don't think it's that critical of a thing in a couple months that, that part wait. I think, with a lot of the other stuff, we kind of need to get a lot of that in place so we can start having that utilized in that. Because we have a new building going just right south of, here on Division, a brand new building that's under the current standards. It's going to be metal.
Okay. So your motion, I'm sorry, Leroy, you were going
I
to
have
say?
a question, because I've heard two different things. I've heard one, I thought, where metal accessory buildings are acceptable anywhere in town, except the
they're not.
historic district.
No, they're not.
And then I heard that we keep the overlay districts where you can have metal accessory, residential accessory buildings, except south of industrial, you would cut the corridor there and not go all the way to the house, past the highway.
And that's what I just understood, is that the corridor that would be cut would be simply from industrial south. As it exists north, as it exists along Noble, and as it exists in Midtown, which is the egg area, that would still be in place. We'd simply be eliminating it from industrial south.
Correct. That's what
Okay.
the motion is.
Okay.
And for residential structures.
Right,
not
right.
for-
No, right, not for right, for.
That's how we
yeah.
separate them.
Yep,
But the commercial one would still go to I-35.
yes,
Correct.
and it would still be along Division. Right, that's how I understand it too.
Yes. And then we're gonna revisit the container thing, because when you look at those, there's people stacking those 2 and 3 and 4 and making all kinds of creative
Yeah,
stuff
and
out there.
like I said, the other thing we'll be talking about too is the accessory dwelling units, because that's in the proposed updated code. So some of that we'll be able to discuss and, again, make some decisions on that, how we like to go.
But it doesn't become the Wild West, it still goes within the same land standards as everything else.
The only question I have on metal storage units, there's a lot of people that do them with a lot of quality, but then there's some that don't. How do you distinguish between the two?
They all have to be permitted, right?
Yes.
Well, we
So
already
what's
said you
our-
couldn't do galvanized or any of that at one point when we were doing these design standards.
That's correct.
in the subcommittee.
And that would still be in there.
So what's your design standard now for someone to do a metal building?
Well, as Councilman Bothroyd had just said, basically it allows metal, but it can't be, your galvanized or your rib type metal. It's got to be like the kind of what's considered like a standing seam type metal, typical of what they use on roofs now and that. So it's not going to be the corrugated galvanized type, and that's currently in there. And so those standards would apply, still apply.
It's like the Indigo painted metal buildings.
Yeah.
And the Morgan buildings,
Sure.
Yeah.
that type of.
So there would still be some standards, so it wouldn't really be a true Wild West for metal.
But if we take out number 10 on page 1425, the shipping containers, prohibiting those, then that, shipping containers are all pretty much uniform, aren't they?
For the most
So
part.
are we saying that then As far as sizes and stuff, they'd still be regulated, but you could use a shipping container as your residential accessory building.
Well, right now you can't.
No, but that's.
No, but I mean, yeah, I guess like Leroy said, we could take that out because size determines whether it permits it or not. So even if you bring a storage container in and it's a 200 square foot storage container or 10 by 20, you still need to get a building permit and it still needs to meet all applicable building codes in that. And so a lot of times that's why people don't want to use them because they can't simply just pull them on their property and just stick them there. You know, they're like any other structure in that. So through that process, you could start out with a shipping container, but in a lot of ways, it's not going to look like one when it's all said and done.
Okay.
But you're right, the current code basically says they're not allowed at this period or at this time at all in any form whatsoever.
So how do you want to address that, James?
Sounds like it's coming down the pike, I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, it's, you know, because we have the whole zoning code and this accessory structures part of it will be in the updated zoning code, so, you know, that's something we can discuss. I'm sorry, what?
You mean we have to do this with another one?
Oh, yeah, there's a whole lot more pages to it too, Don.
You're fired.
I mean, I would just soon it be deleted altogether, to be quite honest. I don't even think we should address it, but I think.
Oh,
it
and
should
that's
just
fine
be-
too. I mean, because again, that's part of the current ordinance and it was just a carryover. So that wasn't anything that was added or really discussed, you know, up until this point. It's what exists today. So if there's a desire to eliminate it, we can eliminate it.
Well, we can do that in the zoning meeting that we're having?
Yeah, because we're going to start the workshops and that, and so that's a point of discussion with anything else that's in there.
Okay. So, back to, now that was all residential buildings.
That's correct.
And accessory structures.
Correct.
The commercial building.
Yes.
Corridor still remains the
Yes.
same.
If you have frontage on division between the historic district south to the interstate, you would have to meet that corridor standards, which is the 60% brick. And the same thing from the historic district east to I-35, that would be in there.
Okay.
The elimination is for the accessory structures, metal versus no metal, and that would now, with the proposal, stop at industrial. Yeah, that would stop at, but yeah, that would be strictly for residential.
Okay, all right. I think we have a motion.
Even though it's zone C2,
Yeah, correct.
because it's
Yeah,
being used for
For
residential.
residential, correct.
I think we have a motion.
In a second.
Is there a second?
Can somebody restate that motion?
The motion was to adopt the ordinance as it was. I had mentioned the two changes, which would be the prohibition of residential that's currently in the code that I inadvertently put out. We're obviously, as I said, going to address that, but it would, I'll put those two provisions in, and then it would reduce the corridor that is for accessory structures and where you could
Residential. accessory
residential. That corridor, which is the, and I'll give you the exact name so we have that on record.
Green.
The main corridor division would end at industrial. Everything south of industrial would go away.
For residential accessory.
Right, for residential accessory structures. Everything else would remain as it was proposed in the ordinance tonight.
That was the motion.
And second.
You had seconded. Is there any other discussion?
Throw something.
Yes, sir.
I would like to point out, for those things, like someone that has 5 acres and they feel that they should have an exception. If you look at page 12 of 25 of the ordinance, section 6.4, modifications or exceptions to residential, commercial, industrial, architectural design standards may be approved through a special use permit. So there is a provision in the ordinance that if someone thinks that they got a unique situation, they could come to the planning commission. Planning commission would recommend to city council would have final decision whether to give them a special use permit. So there is always that if somebody, it's hard to write one rule that fits the whole town.
Well, I think it does fit the whole town at this point.
And, but if you have a unique situation, you can apply for a special use permit.
So there you go.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous approval then for that motion to include the two things that
Yep.
were initially left off, reduce the corridor to
Yep.
ending at, on residential,
Correct.
to end at
That's the main
industrial.
corridor.
Industrial.
Yes, that's correct. Yep. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thanks, Dan.
that was easy.
Yeah, that was easy. Thank you.
Okay. 11, city manager report.
We have a couple items. We have a video that we're going to show you on Banner Park first. Thanks for everyone coming out this evening to recognize the improvements made to Mineral Wells Park, a quality of life improvement for the entire community. Thank you to the Guthrie Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event. Hashtag Team Guthrie, hashtag Go Win, hashtag Community Wins. Fantastic project. Can I hear you all signal your approval? Get loud. We have a lot of parties and individuals to thank for this project. First and foremost, we appreciate the willingness of our local residents to invest in the future of our community. Without the passage of the 3/4 cent capital improvement sales tax, these kinds of projects would not be possible. Thanks to the Oklahoma Tourism and Recreation Department for recognizing the potential of this project and awarding us a Land and Water Conservation Grant Fund in the amount of $437,500. That funded half of this project.
Wow.
On a side note, in case they watch this, OTRD needs to be ready. Guthrie's on the move. We're just getting started. We're going to be submitting some more applications to do some more projects. A heartfelt thanks to our city leadership. We're so grateful that the Guthrie City Council recognized the potential of this project when city staff initially shared with them the vision and draft concepts for this project. We're fortunate to have a city council members that are dedicated and passionate about the enhancement and quality of life of our community. I want to thank all city staff that took the raw ideal that we had, draw down on a piece of paper, and from there, collectively, we refined the concept of this project to what you see today. And it was truly a team effort. We want to thank our former city planner, Rebecca Blaine, for being the lead grant writer for our Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. It helped fund this project. I thank Bill Myers from Myers Engineering that's here. We want to show our appreciation to Bill Myers and his team of engineers for the design efforts and drawing the construction plans for this project. We made a lot of changes throughout this project, and he stuck with us. Not many times do you make as many changes on a project as we probably did this one. Our contractors and subcontractors did a quality job. Cimarron Valley Construction, also known as Diversified Construction of Oklahoma, Atlas Paving, who paved our parking spots, and Craftsman Commercial Playgrounds and Water Parks. They provided all the equipment and installation. Special thank you to Joe Chappell. His passion for both preserving the historic character of our community and for investing in place-making improvements that provides amenities to attract young families and young professionals to our community is second to none. It was a little rough at times because Joe and I are both very passionate about what we do, but as you can see, it worked out pretty great. I think this is a great example of a project that you can do that both provides new amenities to a community, but at the same time complements this rich historic character of the community. Instead of taking away from it, it adds to it. This has been a team project all the way through. Even the fire department's come down and helped water the sod to get it started. Finally, our rock star, Penny Maker, Municipal Service Director, and his entire Public Works team. Penny, you need to be recognized, Penny Maker. Blue, the talents and work ethic that Penny Maker and his entire team is second to no community. What an asset these guys are to the city of Guthrie. Guys, thanks for the tremendous work on this project. It would not be this fantastic without your involvement.
First off, I want to say thanks to all my guys and gals at Public Works. They do a great job helping out and jumping in, doing things that's just not asked of them on their everyday jobs. It means a lot to come out here and put in a lot of hours and a lot of hard work, and get to come back and see all the kids and the different families, getting to use the park and experience different things and new features in the playground and new splash pads, and coming out and seeing the different uses of the park that you haven't seen in the past. I've seen families come out having picnics.
You can see the difference ever since we got the gazebos put in. They've been full every weekend, from the horseshoe pits, basketball courts, tennis courts, pavilions, everything's been full. Splash pads, so park's been crowded for the last 3 weeks.
Hashtag community wins. We absolutely mean it. It's super important to partner together and come together to celebrate these things. And this not only just beautifies for us, our citizens here, but this offers, an opportunity to have events and bring in out-of-towners and somewhere for people to stop and rest and get together with their families, let their kids play or get out of the car and stretch, things like that. And just the more that we can beautify Guthrie, the better for all of us. So.
The next one, you want to introduce it, next presentation?
For a long time, we've wanted to have a specific website that we could use. It's basically almost like a business card for filming in Guthrie, where we could push it out to outside sources so they could say, this Guthrie is a place where we want to either film movies, TV shows, that kind of stuff. And so not too long ago, Shonda offered up her talents to put that website together. So I'm going to let Shonda go over what she's created as, like I said, like our business card for the film community.
Hello, everyone.
Shonda?
So our homepage here, Justin said pretty much the main thing that he is asked about when movies are coming here are the permits. So how do I get the permit? And Justin made an instructional video here, so they've got the resources right there to go through, filling out their permit, downloading it, everything like that. It just makes it easier for people who are coming in to do movies and get everything approved. Our next tab here is the locations here in Guthrie. Now, this is not meant to be like a phone book per se of places here in Guthrie. It's not like they can click on a picture and call the homeowner and be like, I want to use your house. It's just a matter of this is what Guthrie has to offer. If you need Victorian homes, cute cottages, historic downtown, it just shows the resources that Guthrie has and what makes Guthrie beautiful. Our next tab here is our local resources, so it includes all of our lodging options, catering options, office and warehouse spaces, and our airport. They can click on any one of these and look at what's available. The film industry is one of our large economic drivers at the moment. I mean, they come in and they stay in our Airbnbs, they eat at our local restaurants, they utilize our airport, and so we want to make sure that they always have this resource to look at. And this page here is kind of an example. Oh, wrong page. 1 second. Our productions page is not working for some reason. But on our productions page, it shows quotes from movies that have been filmed, from directors from movies that have been filmed here. A lot of positive things to say about Guthrie. It also shows the Dead Center Film Festival video where they had a lot of great things to say about filming in Guthrie. Our state incentive tab here just takes them to Oklahoma's Film Enhancement Rebate Program, so they have that information. And then they have the option to go to our Guthrie Tourism website. So this is pretty much going to be our resource that we automatically give to members of the film industry that are looking at filming in Guthrie, so they have everything that they need.
Great idea.
Great, yeah,
So, and
wonderful.
And this, our productions page also features any production that Aaron has put together about movies that have been filmed here. They're like 5-minute videos. It just links to our YouTube channel, so that's also featured on that page. So I'll have to fix that button right there. But this is always going to be in the works. So as more movies come in and check out this website and have recommendations for our website, I'll be able to go in and make changes to it and update it regularly. As locations come available or no longer come available, this will always be an updated resource.
So is that website already up?
Yes.
Still up, Cool.
Yep, that is our Filming Guthrie website. So
Are you able to advertise it like Google advertising and that type stuff as well?
we can, yeah. I mean, we'll be able to advertise it on Google or on all our social media if we want. But it's pretty much going to be, I guess, if people reach out to anyone at the city, this is where we can send them.
And we can send the link out too.
Yes.
So you need a budget?
So have we shared this with the Lieutenant Governor, since he's pretty high on filming in Oklahoma?
We will pay.
I mean, this is, again, taking a leadership role.
And just to reiterate, of course, you know, we have the Reagan movie right now that's got approximately a $20 million budget. I believe that almost all our bread and breakfasts are full with people staying in that are working on that movie. Motels are pretty much at a high occupancy rate. So we're seeing a lot of activity from it. Before COVID hit, the 12 months before that, we had roughly 14 movies in 12 months. We now have a producer and director that's planning to come back once a year, every year, to do 2 movies with a deal they've got over in Europe. We've got another one looking at us coming in November. After the first of the year, there's a good possibility that we'll probably have at least a part, if not all, of the largest budgeted movie ever made in Oklahoma, filmed here in Guthrie.
Wow, wow. Well, great job on the website, Shauna. And Justin, continued great work with the whole movie and tourism arena. Number 1, way to go, Team Guthrie. Good job. Okay, item number is, I'm sorry, Leroy, do you have anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Item number 12, comments from members of the City Council. Vice Mayor Case.
I don't have anything.
Councilman Long?
I'd just like to mention, I know the holiday season is coming up, and I know there's been a lot of talk about what activities would be taking place and what ones wouldn't. And I just hope that as we've had several other things take place in our community over the recent months, parades and so forth, I hope that the Christmas committee is looking at what they can do. I know they had sent out that they were essentially canceling most of their events. And Christmas, the holidays belong to the community, not to one specific organization. So I hope they're looking to see what they can do to ensure that the holidays are enjoyed by all.
Okay. Councilman Taylor?
Thank you, Tenny. Thanks, staff. I appreciate it. I know you guys worked hard. I appreciate what Leroy's done too. Everybody's doing things. It's moving Guthrie forward. So, and we got a lot of exciting stuff coming up. So that's it. Thank you.
Councilwoman Pettit?
Do we have a great bunch of people or what?
That's for sure.
I think congratulations to everybody for all the work they've done. That goes without saying that we're proud of everybody and we're proud of Guthrie.
Good. Councilman Bothroyd?
Yeah, so everybody did a great job on the mineral wells. We know that. And Leroy, you're sticking with the Harrison Street Bridge deal, and through the trials and tribulations of all that, you know we've been around the horn over and over on that deal. I do want to tell my wife how much I love her. 31 years ago, an hour and 36 minutes ago, we got married. Wow. So, on this day. And then I wanted to go down to, I want the council as a group somehow, and maybe they do, I don't though, have some kind of formal, something formal from City Hall on what happened with this sidewalk deal. Because the way I understand it is that through HP, that thing was disapproved, and so then that got directly to ODOT that it was disapproved, and I think that we need to know what happened, is the bottom line, and so that's just not going to get done, and we want to know. I want to know, and I know others too that I've talked to make sure that there's something in place to where that never happens again. Because I thought they're just an advisory board, and a decision was made on a significant amount of money that shut down a big area of sidewalk action that we could have taken advantage of. Now we're going to have to figure out how to pay for it. So that's all I got.
Okay, Councilor Channel?
I'm good.
Good? Good. And so am I. With that, our city council is adjourned. Wait a minute.
Where are you going?
I'll call to order.
What's the next meeting?
We got another one. We got another meeting.
Triple.
I call to order our special Economic Development Authority meeting.
Oh, I forgot about it.
Yes, of October 6th. Item number 2 is consent agenda. Number A is the approval of the minutes of the Economic Development Authority meeting of September 8th. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
And a second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? In favor, right hand. Unanimous approval of consent agenda. Item number 3, consider approval to convene into executive session for purposes of discussing airport. And I'll
So
entertain a
moved.
motion to, did I hear a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor, right hand. Right hand. Unanimous to move into executive session. Folks, we'll see you sometime later.
Great.
No action, start the presses.
No, yeah. No action, no comments, go home.
Where's Brian?
He was in the bathroom.
We got a quorum anyway.
We got
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to move back into, come out of executive session, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion, all in favor? Raise your right hand. Okay, those that are present, unanimous to move out of executive session. Item number 5, consider action regarding the Guthrie Edmond Regional Airport. No action taken at this time on any of the sub-elements listed here. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we're adjourned. Thank you.